All right, I'll begin the recording.
This meeting is being recorded.
And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shelley. Welcome to the January 18th, 2021 Legislation and Regulation Committee meeting. My name is Song Oh, chairperson of the committee. Before we convene, I would like to remind everyone present that the board is a consumer protection agency charged with administering and enforcing pharmacy law. Where protection of the public is inconsistent with the other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. This meeting is being conducted consistent with the provisions of Government Code Section 11133. Participants watching the webcast will only be able to observe the meeting. Anyone interested in participating in the meeting must join the WebEx meeting. Information and instructions are posted on our website. As I facilitate this meeting, I'll announce when we are accepting public comment. I have advised the meeting moderator to allot 2 minutes to each individual providing comments. This approach is necessary to facilitate this meeting and ensure the committee has the opportunity to complete its necessary business. I appreciate everyone's understanding. Before we get started, I would like to ask the meeting moderator to provide general instructions. Moderator?
Thank you. This is the moderator, and as President and Chair O mentioned, we will have 2-minute time limit on our comments today. We will be utilizing the Q&A feature in WebEx for processing of public comments. At the time public comment is called for, I will open the Q&A session and I will display the following slide. To access the Q&A panel and submit a request for comment, you will locate that Q&A icon on your screen, typically located in the lower right corner. When you click on that, it should open a text box. And in that text box, you can simply type the word comment and submit that to all panelists. I will process comments in the order that they are received. I will also be providing a 15-second reminder when your time is about to expire. When your time is expired, I will let you know that it has expired and then mute your microphone, moving on to our next commenter. When I call on you for public comment, I will let you know that I have sent a request to unmute your microphone. In order to unmute your microphone, you will need to click on the Unmute Me button that will appear at your end. When you do so, you might hear a recording from WebEx. If you can please wait for that recording to finish before you start speaking, otherwise we will miss the beginning of your comment. And with that, I will turn it back over to President and Chair O.
Thank you, Shelley. And I noticed that Jose is in the attendance list. So if you could just promote him, and we will get on with our roll call. So members, as I call your name, please remember to open your line before speaking. We'll start with Maria Serpa.
Here.
Hi, Maria. Cheryl Butler.
Here.
Hi, Cheryl. Jose?
Present.
Hi, Jose. Shirley?
Here.
Hi, Shirley. And Nicole?
Here.
Hi, Nicole, and I am here. Thank you, everyone. With a quorum being established, the committee will now entertain any public comments for items not on the agenda. To facilitate this portion of the meeting, as I previously announced, the meeting moderator will open the line for individuals to provide public comment. You're not required to identify yourself, may do so. As we open the lines, I would like to remind everyone that the board cannot take action on these items except to decide whether to place an item on a future agenda. Members, following a review of the public comments for this agenda item, I will survey to determine if any members have preference for items to be placed on future agenda. Moderator?
Thank you, and I have opened the Q&A panel. So again, if anyone would like to comment on items that are not on today's agenda, you can locate that Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And not seeing any requests, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
It is closed.
All righty. So moving on to the next agenda item now with agenda item 3, approval of July 15, 2021 committee meeting minutes. As included in the meeting materials, the July meeting was canceled. As such, I will proceed to the next agenda item. Agenda item 4, discussion and consideration of draft frequently asked questions related to Senate Bill 212, Chapter 1004, Statutes of 2018, Solid Waste, Pharmaceutical, and Sharp Waste Stewardship. Sorry, moderator, if you could move on to the next one. Thank you. Members, the meeting materials provide background information, including some of the relevant provisions of law. As noted under provisions of the bill, covered entities are required to report specified information to the board, including a list and description of drugs or sharps that are considered covered or not covered. As the board has undertaken implementation of the stewardship law with Cal Recycle, staff have identified several common questions related to the board's purview for the stewardship programs. To assist covered entities and others with an understanding of the requirements, frequently asked questions have been developed. The FAQs have been reviewed by staff at the Department of Public Health and Cal Recycle. I am hopeful you had an opportunity to review the draft FAQs. I have reviewed the FAQs and believe they are appropriate. Do you have any questions or comments on the draft? If any part of your comments, I would entertain a motion to recommend to the board approval of the FAQs. Members?
One comment. I just wanted to confirm the email address that covered entities can email to. Is BOP stewardship missing an E?
Oh, let's take a look.
It's in question number 1.
Good catch. Probably. Anne, is that correct? I'm guessing so. That's probably just a typo. But those would fall under, I think, non-substantive. So I think we could correct those. Yeah, I would think.
Sung, this is
Yes,
Maria.
staff will confirm and update as a.
Okay, thank you, Anne. Go ahead, Maria.
I had a question more, I guess, like philosophical about how we promulgate FAQs, in that it's an excellent document. It has all the questions and answers, but I'm wondering if there is an opportunity to have like an introductory paragraph to state what this is about, or to refer them with a link to the actual regulations. It seemed when I was reading this that it kind of like jumped into the topic, and I had to go research on my own the background of what is this about.
You're right, actually, myself as well. Yeah, so I agree. Maybe we could add a little bit of verbiage at the beginning of the FAQ explaining the program. And if that's okay with Anne.
Sorry, slow on that mute and unmute
Sorry,
this afternoon.
So put you on the spot.
That sounds great. If the committee is agreeable, I'll work with council on that, and then I'll work with the chair to finalize.
Sounds good. Is that okay, Maria?
Yes, and maybe a link to the regulatory language would be helpful too.
Okay, sounds good. Would you like to make a motion? Sorry to put you on the spot. Incorporating your comments.
I will read the motion. I recommend to the board approval for the draft FAQs with the addition of some introductory remarks related to pharmaceutical and sharps waste stewardship program. That's my motion.
Thank you. Anyone second for Maria's motion?
This is Cheryl, I second.
Okay. I think I'll go with Cheryl seconding. Thank you, Shirley. You guys said at the same time. So next motion, we can go with you, Shirley. So with the motion and second, and then we're going to open for public comment. Moderator?
This is the moderator. We've again opened that Q&A panel. If you'd like to comment, click on that Q&A icon, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists.
I'm not sure if it's just me seeing it, but I see Dwayne has, there's his comments. Okay, never mind. We'll just wait to hear from him.
We have, yes, Dwayne has submitted a request. My computer's not cooperating. Dwayne, I've sent a request to unmute your microphone. And you'll have to click the unmute me button on the other end. Dwayne, if you can click that unmute me button, please. There we go. Well, you muted yourself again. Try one more time.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate this chance to address the board. I would like to ask one question regarding this Bill 212 regarding 3PLs. Are they 3PLs which do not own or sell products within the state of California? Are they considered a covered entity? Would you consider them required to report to this, address this bill?
Thank you, Dwayne. We will try to address it if possible at the end of the Q&A session. Shirley, I think we're ready to move on to the next.
I'm opening, Stephen Gray, you're next. If you can unmute your microphone, please.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I think that the request that was made by Maria Serpa, a member of the board, about having some lead-in information is very important. And the second comment that was just made is a good example of that. The FAQs start out talking a lot about a, quote, covered entity. And that phrase has a lot of different meanings in healthcare. Most famously, of course, would be a covered entity under the national HIPAA law. So, and in fact, when you look up covered entity in the statute, which again is a 2018 statute, so people are going to forget all of these definitions, it talks about a covered entity being a manufacturer. So I think, again, it would be important to have some background information, especially if certain key terms are not defined. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next comment comes from Bill Chauvin. Bill, I've sent a request to unmute your microphone. See that you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Yeah, so it's just kind of going off that last comment there, but it seems to be very unclear in the definitions and very vague actually as to who is a covered entity. And I know it's something that we've struggled with in looking at this and in even taking it to several even national law firms and asking is that it seems to be very unclear to them on exactly who is a covered entity and who it should apply to. So I would say that that's one of the things that would be very helpful, I think, to a lot of people is to really kind of get those definitions out there and kind of maybe a clearer picture of who should be a covered entity, especially when it applies to pharmacies, manufacturers, distributors, 3PLs.
Thank you. And seeing no other requests for comment, would you like me to close the panel?
Thank you. Yes, please.
It is closed.
President, hi, this is Eileen. If you wouldn't mind, I wouldn't mind covering some of this stuff, but partly what we were concentrating on with our facts is the board itself does not have jurisdictional authority, interpretive authority over all provisions of this act. For instance, the definition of a covered entity is with Cal Recycle to interpret, not for this board. So for some of the introductory, we can understand possibly some of the confusion, but those people should be contacting Cal Recycle with respect to any definition or interpretation of what the definition of a covered entity is, not this board.
Okay, thank you, Eileen. Okay, with that, I think that addresses the concerns. Unfortunately, just Gotta stick with our own swim lanes here. Any other member comments or questions or concerns for the members before we vote? Okay, hearing none, we're going to go for the vote. Maria?
Yes.
Thank you, Maria. Cheryl?
Yes.
Thank you, Cheryl. Jose?
Yes.
Thank you, Jose. Shirley?
Yes.
Thank you, Shirley. Nicole?
Yes.
Thank you, Nicole. And I vote yes, the motion passes. Okay, moving on to the next agenda, item 5, discussion and consideration of California Code of Regulations Section 1717 and 1717.4 related to electronic prescriptions, including possible changes. The next item for discussion is possible changes to Section 1717 and 1717.4 related to electronic prescriptions. As you recall, effective January 1, 2022, most prescriptions are required to be e-prescribed. The provisions are detailed out in Business and Professions Code Section 688, which became effective January 1st, 2022. As noted in the meeting materials, to remove conflict between the statute and regulation, amendments to the regulation are necessary. As the language was undergoing legal review at the time the meeting materials were released, I would like to first ask counsel if there are any other comments on the draft language under our consideration. Eileen, do you have any comments, or any attorney from DCA, if anyone in present? Any?
No. Hi, this is Eileen, President. Not that I had, that was not covered in the materials.
Okay, thank you. So as I open up this item for committee discussion, I would welcome comments on the proposed amendments to the regulation language and would entertain a motion on the proposed regulation language if you believe it would be appropriate for the board to pursue such a change. I note language that could serve as a possible motion is included in the meeting materials. Before I have one comment before on the proposed language. But I'll open up for the members first, if anyone has comments. Okay, quiet group today. So Eileen and Ann, I just wanted to question and confirm under 1717, we are amending a pharmacist shall transfer a prescription for Schedule 345 controlled substances. I believe to keep it even more consistent, we need to say a pharmacist shall transfer an electronic data transmission prescription for Schedule 345 controlled substances. So just wanted to get your feedback on those.
Sorry, the awkwardness of WebEx is you don't know who's going to jump in. So this is Ann. I'll just go ahead and jump in. I think that that's probably a question for the board, right? Under 688, you have to do it for an electronic. The question becomes, do you want it to be for other kinds of prescriptions as well?
Okay. Members, any thoughts? Okay, no thoughts. And so are we all okay pushing forward and maybe making changes slightly to, say, electronic prescriptions under 1717?
Hi, Sung, it's Maria. It's very quiet. We're still here.
Okay.
I think that, I'd be supportive of changes and would be interested to see, because I think you've probably have some ideas of what you'd like to change. And so maybe you could share what your thoughts are.
My only changes is that under 1717, we are adding a word shall instead of may under E, 1717E. And I think that since 688 really only requires electronic prescriptions to be transferable between pharmacies, it probably would be more consistent to keep it pharmacists shall transfer unelectronic prescriptions for Schedule 3, 4, 5 controlled substances. And also maybe add a language may transfer other prescriptions, but this is where things get a little dicey.
I'm wondering though, by not referring to any specific schedule, if that is implied enough rather than get into details. I mean, I think maybe that's a question for Eileen, but it seems by not designating specifics, it makes it implied to be all. Right?
Okay. Eileen, any thoughts on this one?
Dr. Serpa, are you talking about in subsection E?
Yes.
Because we do specify out Schedule 3, 4, or 5. Are you talking, sorry, I was just, and obviously Schedule 2 isn't eligible for refill. Are you talking about for something more generic after that?
No, I thought that we were just talking to the comment that President O was talking about changing the may to shall in section A. Maybe I misunderstood him. What section were we referring to, Sung?
Oh, it's 1717E. Shall is a staff proposed language, and then I'm proposing that we add a electronic prescriptions, electronic data prescriptions.
My question is, excuse me, is there a reason why you just want electronic prescriptions and not oral?
Because if we are, again, putting ourselves in a bind here, because pharmacists are not able to transfer controlled substances that are not filled. So they're only able to transfer for refill purposes, right? So if we require pharmacists to transfer a prescription for Schedule 3, 4, 5 for all prescriptions, well, I guess it's for refill purposes here in this sentence. So yeah, maybe I'm overthinking it. I just don't want a pharmacist to be required to do something when they're not able to do. So this law, I think, existed only to mirror the federal law 1306.25, which allows the refill of controls 3, 4, 5 to be transferred. But with this language, it seems like we are adding another requirement for pharmacists to have to transfer a prescription instead of allowing pharmacists to transfer. So
now I'm seeing what you're saying. This is Maria. So I guess I would want to know from Eileen why the word may is crossed out and shall is added. Can't it just stand as is if I'm understanding Sung correctly?
Because I think where possibly the staff is trying to go to is trying to implement 688 to the extent that we could. That after that, but then whether we, then should designate, electronically. This one just gets difficult, just as President O said, because if we do the amendment here, then do we change it again after, the federal law will allow the transfer of a prescription that hasn't been filled via electronic means.
I'm just wondering if we don't deal with the electronic part and just the keeping it as may. So it's an option versus a requirement, because shall makes it a requirement.
But I think Section 688 makes it a requirement, to be able to transfer certain prescriptions electronically unless exemptions apply. So I believe what they were trying to get there was that. So,
as long as it makes sense legally, I just don't want it to read that a pharmacist has to transfer every prescription all the time. But if you read it a little bit more further, it's talking about if they are going to transfer, this is how they do it versus transferring 100% of the prescriptions all the time. I just don't want it to be an unintended consequence. But
Right. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. So that was my concern, is this unintended consequences of pharmacists. 688G is already putting us in a bind, right? So this is, I'm just wondering if this will put us in a bind again of requiring pharmacists to do something that they're not able to do. But I think, you know what, after thinking through it, I think this will be okay, because transfer of 345 for refill purposes is allowed.
Right.
So maybe it is okay for us to say shall, because it's only discussing for what is already allowed. So
Under federal law.
right. So maybe it is okay to leave it as it is. I mean, we can see where it lands, and I'm curious to see if there's any comments on this one as well. But we can leave it as drafted and go from there if members are agreeable. Okay, well, anyone willing to make a motion to adopt this regulation? Got a very quiet group today.
okay, this is Maria. I move the motions as written on the screen.
Thank you, Maria. Anyone second for Maria?
You said Shirley was going to do it this time, huh?
Shirley, do you want a second?
Do it. I second.
Okay, thank you, Shirley. All right, with the motion and second, let's open up for public comment.
This is the moderator. We've reopened that Q&A panel. If you'd like to comment on this motion, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. Our first comment comes from Dwayne. Dwayne, I've sent a request to unmute your microphone.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes. One thing just a comment I made, this is, this basically California change in this section, regulation 1717 is fine. I just want to point out on the discussion on the last subject, I have been in contact with the Cal Recycle individuals at that agency, and they do not understand the difference between various entities which are covered or not covered. And so I think it's really critical for the Board of Pharmacy to make those determinations, because the people at Cal Recycle are not pharmacists, and they do not understand one entity from another. So that's the only comment I wanted to make, and I thank you very much. We did reach out to them, and we reached out to legal people, and still we're not getting good definition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our next comment comes from Stephen Gray. Stephen, I sent a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you very much. I would encourage the board to defeat the motion and get more information about this. The regulation, as has been pointed out, would mandate something that is now permitted. A lot of work has gone into the last 10 or 12 years in trying to curb the opioid crisis. And part of that work has been reaching out to physicians and other prescribers and having them enter into contracts with patients to limit their use of pharmacies to specific pharmacies, where the prescriber can work with the pharmacy regarding the potential adverse effects that the patient is getting from opioids and other controlled substances. This would basically imply that those contracts are nullified and that the pharmacy would be mandated by pharmacy board regulation to transfer those prescriptions to a pharmacy that was not part of the contract with the prescriber. So that's one problem. The other problem is that there's still a problem with electronic transfer of prescriptions pharmacy to pharmacy. And until those problems are worked out with the standards people, I don't believe that this is an appropriate or even a possible to mandate that all prescriptions in 1717.4, controlled substance or otherwise, have to be transferred to another pharmacy electronically. Now, if you do want to limit it to 688, then of course 1717.4 should say controlled substances or something that you're trying to accomplish, in specifically. But I would really suggest you defer on this one and get more information and think about those tragic unintended consequences in the opioid crisis, et cetera.
Thank you. And our next comment comes from Danny Martinez. Danny, I've sent a request to unmute your microphone.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Thank you. Danny Martinez with the California Pharmacists Association. I would like to echo Dr. Gray's concerns. Actually, took word for word what I was going to say, so I appreciate that, Dr. Gray. We would also be concerned with the unintended consequences. I would ask that the motion be voted down. Thank you.
Thank you. And not seeing any other requests for comment, would you like me to close the panel?
Thank you. Thank you, Shelley.
It is closed.
Hearing some comments, I am actually concerned. So wondering let me get to Anne actually. Anne, is this regulation change critical for us at this point with 688 being a very imperfect situation right now? Is it okay for us to hold off? And will it cause any impact?
So I would say that there are times when there confusion is created because there is a conflict between statutory requirements and regulatory requirements. So it's fairly common for this board to seek to remove those conflicts in the law so that the regulated public has a clear understanding of what is required. If the committee believes that this is premature and wants to allow 688 additional time for implementation of those provisions before we move forward, that's absolutely fine. It's absolutely the policymaker, you as the policymaker, to give that guidance to staff. 688 is on the books. We have been doing education. We have released FAQs, et cetera. It is an imperfect bill. I think everybody, I think that there's been conversation about it being imperfect. So I think it really, in my opinion, if you're asking my opinion, if you want to wait some time to let the dust settle on 688 before you move forward, we're happy to table this if that's the committee's desire.
Okay, thank you, Anne.
Yeah, I'm sorry. May I just say one more thing? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If the committee determines that it wants to carve out and only require it for certain ones, then I think we need to look at the language a little more globally, because then we are removing the permissive piece of it, right? So if we want to make it a shall for controlled substances, then I think it needs to, if we're only going to make it a shall for certain ones, we need to make sure that we are retaining the permissive value of the language that exists now. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you, Anne. With that said, I believe Maria made the motion and Shirley seconded. Are you okay? Where are you, Maria?
I'm okay with removing the motion and having further discussion, but with staff to determine the next steps.
Okay. Sounds good. Shirley, is that okay with you? Well, yeah.
Yeah, that works for me. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. So let's continue on with the discussion. There won't be any motion and we will just move on to the next agenda item. Any other member comments before we go? Okay. And since there was, I think we don't need to Yeah, no, we didn't need to vote down. I think we just rescinded and we're good to go. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 6. Discussion.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
This is Anne. I apologize. So it's the direction of the committee that staff will continue to work. Is it to work with the chair on the issue?
Is that okay with the members? Yeah. Hearing none, I would assume that is okay.
That's fine with me.
Yep. So the direction is to chair to continue to work with the EO and to develop solutions as 6088 settles down and trying to figure out where that leads. So we will continue to monitor that situation and bring us a solution if there is any in the future. Is that clear, Anne? Is that good?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Anne. Moving on to the next agenda, item 6, discussion and consideration of pending legislation impacting the practice pharmacy, the board's jurisdiction, and board operations. Included in the meeting materials is information on 4 measures that we reviewed last year. I note that staff have reached out to the respective author's office to request status updates. The first measure, Assembly Bill 458, would create the Affordable Prescription Drug Importation Program. I note that the board did not take a position last year. The author's office has indicated that they have not made a decision to move the bill at this time. I do not believe any action is required at this time, but would appreciate your thoughts. Any comments from members? Okay, moving on. The next measure is Assembly Bill 646. Oh, sorry, you know what? I'm gonna open it for public comment. I think we structured to do it public comment after each bill.
All right, this is the moderator. We've opened that Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a comment on this bill, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. Seeing no requests, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please. Thank you, moderator. The next measure is Assembly Bill 646, which would require professional licensing boards under the department that post information on their intranet website about a revoked license due to a criminal conviction to update or remove information about the revoked license should the board receive an expungement order related to the condition. The board did not establish a position on this measure, and I do not believe any action is necessary on this measure and would appreciate your comments. Members, any comments? Okay, moderator, please open the line for public comment.
This is the moderator. Our Q&A panel is again open. If you'd like to comment on this bill, you can click on that Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And seeing no requests, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, moving on, members. Assembly Bill 1328 would amend several provisions of law to expand authority for pharmacists to provide CLIA waive tests with some exceptions. The exceptions include CLIA waive tests that are used for surgery, diagnosis, or treatment of heart failure, female fertility, or ovulation prediction. The measure generally also includes requirements for notification to primary care providers or other specified physician for any abnormal test results. The board has a support position on the measure. Staff was advised by the author's office that a decision on the measure will be made sometime this year. Again, members, I do not believe any action is necessary, but welcome your thoughts. Members, any comments? Okay, moderator, please open the line for public comment.
This is the moderator, and our Q&A panel is again open. You can follow the instructions on your screen if you'd like to make a comment. And seeing no requests, I will close the panel.
Thank you, Shelley. Members, the last measure is Senate Bill 731. The board established an oppose unless amended position on this measure because it will impede the board's authority to consider relevant arrest and conviction information prior to making a licensing decision. As noted in the meeting materials, as a consumer protection agency, the board must have full information to evaluate an individual's background prior to making a licensing decision. The author's office indicates that they intend to move the bill this year. Members, I recommend we maintain our position and would appreciate your comments. Members? And moderator, please open the line for public comments.
And this is the moderator. One more time, we've opened this Q&A panel for discussions on these bills. If you have a comment to make on this last bill, please click on that Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. Seeing no requests, I'll close the panel.
Thank you so much. There's not that many bills this time because it's still early part of the year, but I'm sure we'll have a lot more coming up in the next few months. All right, moving on to agenda items 7 through 9 is the regulations. The remaining items are for information only, as detailed in the meeting materials and associated attachments. The board has a number of regulations in various stages of promulgation. I do not intend to review each as the information is contained in the public materials. I do note that the board currently has 4 regulations undergoing final review by the OAL, 1 regulation undergoing pre-notice review, and 1 regulation with staff to prepare the necessary rulemaking documents required to initiate the formal process. Members, do you have any questions or comments on any of the regulations included on agenda items 7 through 9? Okay, moderator, please open the line for public comment.
This is the moderator. We've opened that Q&A panel. This is for comments on items 7, 8, and 9 on today's agenda. If you'd like to request for a comment, please click on that Q&A icon, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. Our first comment comes from Dwayne. Dwayne, I've sent a request to unmute your microphone.
Yes, I'd just like to ask the board for one clarification, if possible. We have a client which is a 3PL, which are distributing prescription medications into the state of California, and with that distribution, they're including patient information with the shipment. Is that acceptable, or is that considered dispensing and should be stopped, and the action should be stopped?
Hi, this is Eileen, and the board generally will not give that type of guidance out during board meetings or in any other format, so I would advise the board not to answer any question with respect to that, with respect to individuals.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dwayne. Please contact the board via email. I was actually going to refer Eileen to speak on that, but thank you for speaking up already, Eileen. And I don't see any other comments, so.
No other comments. I will close the panel.
Thank you, Shelley. And moving on to the last agenda, item 10 is the future committee meeting dates, which is April 26, 2022 and July 18th, 2022, which I think at that point we'll have a lot more fun. And with that, before we adjourn, I would like to thank everyone for your time and participation. Thanks for a quick meeting. And our next meeting is scheduled for April 26th. And we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.